Thank you. Thank you so very much. Well, as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, that we've been through some very insightful and crucial topics since morning, right? Starting from some very important introduction to the dew point markets to then talking about forex trading and then Bitcoin as well. But now what we look forward to is a very important panel discussion on crypto unveiled, what are the macro trends, investments and payments. Well, as we all know that, ladies and gentlemen, this crucial topic is something that I'm sure a lot of us have been really looking forward to. Well, as we all know that cryptocurrency has, and the digital currencies when we talk about, has definitely seen a remarkable growth. Well, spurred on the incredible growth of the BTC and ETH, the field of cryptocurrencies has only and only continued to expand. And now when we look forward to crypto, it's time we take our discussions a notch higher to what are actually the macro trends, investments and payments when it comes to the crypto unveiling. And we have a crack team of experts to join us on stage and take us through some very important insights and details on this panel. But till then, I would also urge you all to please join us on some very important, conversations and, things happening on our online portals as well. You can join us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and join us on the hashtag MoneyExpoIndia 2024. We have a separate page on LinkedIn as well under the name Money Expo India. So do not forget to tag us there. You can share your thoughts, your key takeaways to the speakers that you all have heard to and the conversations that are listening here with your thoughts as well. And I'm sure the online community is waiting to join of all that action happening right here at Money Expo India 2024. Well, our stage is getting all set. In the meantime, I'd like to invite our speakers joining us on stage for the panel discussion, Crypto Unveiled, Macro Trends, Investments and Payments. Our first speaker joining us on stage is the VP of International Expansion at Mudrex, boasts nearly a decade of growth expertise. Well, previously he led growth at Bizom and Growth Trek and founded Solvifi. With a BBM from Bangalore University and a diploma from LSE, he drives Mudrex global expansion. Please put your hands together for the VP of International Expansion Mudrex, Mr. Saurabh Kumar. Warm welcome, sir. Next up joining us on stage is a tech visionary driving innovation in AI, blockchain and renewable energy. With leadership roles at Tesla, Keep Network, ZepPay and Insanity, he is a pioneer in the fields like female-led DOS and solar BTC. Inspired by Star Trek, he uses tech for social good. Joining us on stage is the CEO at Insanity, Mr. Prashant Irudayaraj. A round of applause, please. I would urge you all to please sit as per your pictures on the screen, if you all can do that for us. Well, next up joining us on stage is a 4-year expert navigating financial complexities, excels as a top account manager. This BCom honors grad from Delhi University leverages market knowledge and client psychology to deliver consistent returns. His meticulous attention to detail and strategic foresight sets him apart. We have with us the account manager as AUS Global, Mr. Norbu Lama. Mr. Norbu maybe would be joining us very soon. Next up joining us on stage is a leading tech lawyer founding 0 to 3 Collective. She guides AI, Web3 and gaming companies through complex legal terrains from corporate setup to global expansion. We have with us the founder and CEO 0 to 3 Collective, Ms. Anuradha Chaudhary. Warm welcome. Yes, you can sit there. And to spearhead this conversation, we have with us a media and tech entrepreneur with expertise in lifestyle and Web3. He heads Plush Ventures, encompassing media, merchandising and tech advisory. The manager partner at Plush Ventures. To spearhead this conversation, we have with us Mr. Rahul Jagtiani. Warm welcome, sir. And yes, over to you to take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Norbu is not here, but we're just going to kick things off. Before we start, I just want to ask the audience, how many people here have invested in crypto? Or will admit you have? Decent number. Well, hopefully we can have more of you change your mind at the end of this conversation. Yeah. Crypto, of course, very pleasantly surprised that it's now going mainstream, and great to be talking about crypto at such a large conference here in Mumbai as well. We have a fantastic panel who is very well versed with crypto, and I've had the pleasure of knowing at least Prashant and Anuradha before this panel. But I want to kick things off with Anuradha first. You know, crypto is still looked upon with a little bit of suspicion in India as far as the authorities go. I mean, until recently, even in the US, it was a bit of an issue, but now it's become an election issue in the US, where you've got about 40 million crypto investors, and now you've got Trump and Kamala Harris both vying for the crypto investor as part of the electorate. Where do you think India stands today in terms of crypto adoption?
Thanks everyone for being here. That's a good question, and the answer is unfortunately very short. India doesn't stand too close to crypto adoption at the moment, largely because the one of the main problems in this industry, and specifically in India as well, and in many countries, not just India and the US, is that the regulation, sure, it's far behind, but there's also no education in the space. I mean, people still confuse cryptocurrencies with Bitcoin, with the blockchain, and they're separate technologies, right? And as much as there's a lack of infrastructure here right now, there's a lack of education, not having a specific legal framework, not having proper regulations, it basically, it churns fear in the crowds, it churns fear in retail investors. So I think that till we get some regulatory clarity, specific regulations that apply, not just regulations that start and end at AML and KYC and
a 30%
advertising.
tax.
And the 30% tax, which we didn't get any relief from this time in the budget. I think till we get some clarity on that, it's going to take some while for mass crypto adoption in India.
But, you know, and Prashant, you've lived overseas as well. You've been working in this space from a technology point of view for a long time. What do you think are the differences between some of the other markets that you worked in, let's say Dubai, Canada, where you're also, I think, currently based for the last 1 year, and in India?
Well, I spent a lot of time in the US, Canada, different countries. One thing you'll see at a conference like this in those countries is an entire section of the conference devoted to mining. And most of these places have a very strong crypto mining or Bitcoin mining community that's driving regulation, but that's also producing Bitcoin that they are then trying to get into their markets. So the incentives that are aligned to support the proliferation of Bitcoin. I don't know if anybody watched Bitcoin in the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, where RFK and Trump spoke.
RFK is the presidential candidate, right?
Yes, he's the independent presidential candidate, and Trump is the Republican candidate. So presidential candidates are speaking at a Bitcoin conference. I don't know if anyone can imagine a politician speaking at a crypto conference in India, not yet at least. So, but I think a big reason for that is the mining community that's using really innovative ways of creating Bitcoin using waste energy. And because of that, they have the financial clout and the technical clout to pull these big names.
Anuradha, I also just wanted to, you talked about regulation. I also wanted to ask you, is India working on a framework like Europe is, MiCA, which is Markets in Crypto Assets? I know you're part of a regulatory body called Bharat Web3 Association. How far are the conversations with, you know, the authorities in India as far as creating a framework for crypto goes?
See, the thing with India is that in 2018 there was an RBI banking ban on crypto transactions, which was later overturned by the Supreme Court. And the misconception is that cryptocurrency is illegal here. The reality is that it's unregulated, right?
And that's the difference. Yes.
Yes.
Being,
Cryptocurrency
being
is not
unregulated is not the same as being illegal.
Precisely. It's not illegal, it's unregulated. The use of cryptocurrency is in the gray area, but cryptocurrency itself is legal, which is very confusing. I mean, how do you expect retail investors, how do you expect consumers, how do you expect those setting up businesses to be able to do that stress-free? In Europe, they have partly adopted the market and crypto asset regulation. The rest will be adopted at the end of this year. But it is a wide problem. In India specifically, if you lose your crypto assets, if there is an instance of fraud or hacking, it's very difficult to recover these assets, right? In England, I remember a couple of years ago, there were a lot of cases of crypto muggings. There was, in fact, a person who was trying to get an Uber outside the Liverpool Street station who was mugged, and I think about 5,000 pounds worth of Ethereum was stolen from his Coinbase wallet. There was also a case in England in 2019 where someone had their assets stolen. They appointed a cyber expert to track down these assets and found the hacker's wallet, and they got an interim order from the court. An interim order is basically when the court tells you to do something and tells you not to do it. And the court ruled that since cryptocurrency can technically in the UK be described as property, you can take action basis owning that property. But in India, we don't have any clear definition and we don't have any clear regulation. But the Department of Economic Affairs has announced that there will be a consultation paper that will be released next month. And at BWA, we are trying to put together our recommendations on it. But at the moment, we are still at the stage of just waiting for a consultation paper.
So if you can get mugged in the UK, you can most definitely get mugged here. So all those guys who put their hand up when I asked who holds crypto, you better be careful when you're walking out of the conference today. But coming back to Saurabh, you're running a business here with Moodrex, right? And I'm sure you face a lot of challenges as well, a lot of headwinds. Can you just share some of the challenges you're facing in terms of running a crypto exchange in India?
Right. So, of course, banking has been a very big challenge. And so if you look at since the RBI regulation that came in 2018, while Supreme Court overturned it, but in practice and in principle, banks kind of still stayed away from crypto. So apart from some new age small and medium enterprise banks that are yet to become much larger banks, if you look at larger banks without naming any of them, nobody will touch crypto by far.
Which means that they won't let you on-ramp to an exchange. Is that what you mean? Which
Correct.
means I can't transfer money from, let's say, my bank account to my crypto wallet on your exchange.
Correct. So that's in fact one of the things that we've solved over the last 3 years. We run a product specifically solving this. It's called Saber.money, where we give our APIs and SDKs to other exchanges and wallets to accept crypto for fiat and fiat for crypto, right? But running it from a day-to-day operation perspective is an extremely challenging business, right? You have to coordinate with multiple banks at multiple points of time, keeping your bank accounts on. All kind of P2P transactions lead to all kind of risk, your bank accounts being frozen. Then you have to sort of work with the authorities, get that recovered, but you have like your money stuck for like 6 to 9 months. And that's like a couple of $1 million just lying around. So.
No, and the US now has crypto ETFs. So you've got these big asset management companies, arguably the largest in the world. You've got BlackRock with 9 trillion, that's trillion with a T, with $9 trillion of assets under management. They have an ETF, which means now there's a vehicle for ordinary people to put in money through, let's say, their 401k, which is similar to like people just buying mutual funds in India, right? So you've got BlackRocks and Fidelities coming in. So as they say, you have to skate to where the puck is going. So this is definitely the future. How far is India from introducing, a product like this for the Indian audience? Anyone can take this question.
Yeah, so I'll, funny enough, couple of stories here. So We built a product like last 3 years ago, which is primarily like a mirror of a mutual fund. Something called as coin sets, which will have equal holdings of a bunch of cryptocurrencies. And our idea was primarily to serve the mutual fund market here in India, because people understood that concept of having diversified risk assets and so on. We've also launched, you can still buy like ETFs through us here in India as an Indian user as well. But adoption.
What kind of ETFs?
The BlackRock ETFs. So we have a partnership in place in US through which you can come on ramp with us and you can directly buy that ETF. This primarily exists for HNI and UHNIs, so we call it Mudrix Prime. Been live for about 6 odd months. But haven't seen any great adoption there. Coming back to from a government perspective, given we're still in a state where banking itself is such a big challenge, you don't see structured products coming from banks. Because at the end of the day, most of this underwriting and sort of that risk assessment is done by large banks before you can sort of launch a mutual fund or an equivalent regulated product. And here, no bank is willing to take that risk. But I suppose that changes as soon as we have some sort of a regulatory framework in place. We could have high fees products, but maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, we could see something similar.
And because the RBI does not like crypto, how far, in your opinion, are we from having structured products like that? And it's not even like a huge issue here, right? Just in the US, it's become an election issue with 40 million, crypto holders. But our country has far too many problems before crypto becomes an election issue.
Right. So that's why I wouldn't set a timeline, but given at what speed I've seen a lot of things move and pass, I would say 5 years is a good conservative and hopeful number both. So if something like that happens in 5 years, I think we'll be in a good path. Having said that, depriving a large set of audience from, say, something simpler investment, for example, a Bitcoin or just an Ethereum for that matter, that seems a little far-fetched, and a lot of people are getting punished because of few people's mistakes. So that's our outlook to crypto in the country.
And I'm now going to say something a little controversial, and you might agree with it, being one of, because you love the technology side of crypto. Crypto was started off as a cypherpunk movement for people who don't like government, who are very libertarian, and they don't want government interference in money. And Bitcoin actually came about, in early 2009, because in the US, the big banks got bailed out by the average taxpayer, and the average taxpayer lost their homes in the subprime crisis, right? But the big banks and the CEOs, they just got richer. And now, while it started off as a cypherpunk movement, very libertarian, very anti-government, and yet people are celebrating that governments are now accepting crypto, and big banks are now coming up with structured products like ETFs. So what are your thoughts on that from a technology standpoint, as someone who originally fell in love with the idea of decentralized technologies and Bitcoin, to now see it becoming a little bit more centralized, if at all?
Well, I don't think it's becoming centralized unless BlackRock takes over all of crypto. But I definitely think it's a win for cypherpunks. And the analogy I will draw is the Indian freedom struggle or the American civil rights movement. Just like in the freedom struggle or the civil rights movement, in the cypherpunk movement, you had early crypto people going to jail for fighting for financial freedom and permissionless ledgers. You had governments banning the technology. And now, just like in the freedom struggle and in the civil rights movement, eventually they realized, well, we can't make this go away, and it's just going to keep growing and increasing, so we might as well try to regulate it. And the analogy there is when the British left India and they said, well, we'll let them have India, but they'll probably fail in 10 years, right? So that's basically where governments are with crypto right now. And just like India, I think 78 years later, we're still here. We're now top 5 economy in the world. I think crypto is going to keep growing. What the governments have done, maybe a little bit condescendingly, thinking that they can kind of regulate it in a specific way using regulation, is they've just allowed more people to come in. So I think it's a win for crypto. And I think it's a win for humanity because now most people in the world can use decentralized tools to defend their freedom. People did not have a non-violent way of defending
Explain
freedom.
that for a lot of people who just look at Bitcoin or Ethereum as just something they can invest in because it's going up. It's like a casino of sorts, right? Explain the decentralized technology behind Bitcoin for those who don't understand that.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer system, which means that there's no one individual or organization that controls it, right? So
It's
if
like the
you-
internet.
Yeah, it's like the internet. No government can shut down the internet, right? Someone somewhere will run a node. SpaceX has satellites flying over. You will have access to internet within a few days of the government shutting it down. The government has tried to shut down the internet in several places, and people still find a way to access the internet, right? It's the same with crypto. You can still access the internet. The key thing there is you control your money. No bank, no intermediary, no one in the Bitcoin protocol, because they have no idea it's your money, can control your money. And once again, drawing the analogy to the Indian freedom struggle, this is the most non-violent way of defending your freedom, right? It's like the Salt March where Indians kind of like said, well, I don't care that you've banned salt or you've banned the production of salt. We're just going to go do it. And you can't stop us. Same here. Governments can't take your money. They can't force you to get rid of it because you control it. But in the banking system, a government or entities or even scammers can take your money because it's controlled by a central. You don't control your money. It's controlled by other people, right? Does that make sense?
Well, let's try and unpack that a little bit. I talked about centralization of cryptocurrencies, right? Now you've got asset managers like Fidelity and BlackRock, and you've got Elon Musk, or rather Tesla, on their balance sheet. They've got Bitcoin as well, and you have Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy. Has anyone heard of Michael Saylor? Yeah, very, very few people. So Michael Saylor in the US runs a company called MicroStrategy, and they've been borrowing money from the markets to actually buy more Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet. So Bitcoin goes up, the value of their stock goes up, right? It's a publicly traded company in the US. And they've got, I think, billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So my question is, would you not agree that we are seeing some sort of centralization of ownership of Bitcoin? Because if tomorrow Michael Saylor says that, hey, I'm dumping Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is going to drop like 50%, 60% overnight. So in that sense, do you not see that as a problem, that this was supposed to be a decentralized technology where everybody was supposed to be owning a little bit of it? This was supposed to be the currency for regular people like you and me who don't have a chance, who don't have hope. And yet you're seeing big tech or these billionaires or these large asset managers accumulate a lot of it, and we're just left with, the crumbs of it.
Well, I would say there is a chance that BlackRock or these guys could take over a lot of the Bitcoin accumulation and then maybe affect the protocol in some way. But I would say in that event, most people would switch to Ethereum. I'm actually more of an Ethereum fan myself. So inherent in there is, it's not the only cryptocurrency that you can use to store value or do transactions or control your own money. There are now several others, as Ethereum, the Solana. So it's not really in their interest to do it, because if they do it, people will just sell their Bitcoin, move to Ethereum, and then before they can get rid of their Bitcoin, all of their assets will crash. And I don't think BlackRock or Michael Saylor wants their assets to crash. So there's no incentive for them to really take it over.
Or to manipulate the price, because if it crashes, they get to buy more at a cheaper price.
But
And
once again, people will just move to another cryptocurrency.
Right. So as sort of it matures, even across centralized parties, there'll be some sort of a parity that comes. So if a BlackRock is going to sell it, a Fidelity will buy it because you don't stop seeing the value, right? And these, as the market matures, you'll see some large players have very equal say in sort of this, and they could have a consortium. So it won't be able to do it without having some sort of a collusion, and hoping that it's US regulated entities, the chances of something like that happening is fairly low. Possible, however.
But as far as the Indian government goes, we have a problem with currencies that one cannot regulate. And I think India, specifically, I'm going to talk about India, we have a problem with the word cryptocurrency, right? Because the US is the reserve currency of the world, in the sense it's 80% of the global trade is done in US dollars, right? So as the currency of the world, India and the rupee is not the currency of the world. So we do have issues with, terror financing, geopolitical issues with our neighbors. So to have people transact in a currency which the government does not have oversight on, I'm sure it's understandable that that's a problem for the Indian government, Anuradha.
Yes, it is a problem. They are worried about money laundering. They are worried about terrorist financing, and rightly so, right? If you look at stable coins, there are so many folks in India, there are so many folks outside of India that will sell their services, or they'll provide advisory services, and they'll receive USDT, they'll receive USDC. There are lawyers that do it as well, and it's very common, but technically, under Indian regulations, if you look at the foreign exchange laws in India, if I am exporting my goods or services, when I am receiving consideration for that export of services, that consideration has to be in freely convertible currencies. And cryptocurrency, stable coins, USDC, USDT is not currently freely convertible. So it is not regulated as a payment mechanism in the country.
We will get into stable coins in just a bit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people may not be familiar with stable coins here. But coming back to the Indian view and the Indian authorities' view on cryptocurrency, I want to take a counter view that why it could be problematic for them. If you see in the 2021 bull run, right, when all of us were sitting at home during COVID, the kind of cryptocurrencies that gained traction were Dogecoin and all these cryptocurrencies, and some of y'all here may have even invested in some of those cryptocurrencies in 2021, 2022. So it just became like, a casino of sorts with no oversight, with no investor protection. So one can hardly blame the government in having some sort of a negative view or a suspicious view that what the hell is going on, this can ruin people's lives, and we need some sort of overview in terms of what cryptocurrencies are. Arguably at that time most people, especially the governments, didn't even understand it, but one can hardly blame them for having a negative view on cryptocurrencies, because a lot of people probably associate cryptocurrencies not just with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also, which are volatile assets by itself, but also your Dogecoin and all these, random coins that just come about that have no value, that anyone can just create, and people can really lose their shirt on their backs because of it, right?
Yes, so without laws for consumer protection, this is going to continue to happen. That is why we need regulation. It is not just to protect the investors, it is also to make the issuers of these currencies or the issuers of these tokens accountable. It is to provide them a framework to not only be accountable, but also to be able to build with these transformative technologies without the stress and pressures that come with building anything in the Web3 industry. It is to keep innovation here. It is to protect the retail investor. Anything that, your earlier question, which Prashant answered as well, anything that has an impact on human existence, whether it's food, whether it's drugs, it's air travel, it's medicine, it has to be regulated. And unless the government and until the government regulates it, we're all going to be stuck in this purgatory.
Yeah, and Saurabh, you're running an exchange and you probably would have listed some of these tokens and coins as well. Now that's a commercial call because there's demand for it, right? But what's your view? People in the crypto industry talk about a new currency that's going to help people. It's a new technology. And while that may be true, on the other hand, you also have right now you've got meme coins, which are essentially the NFTs of 2021. And even in 2021, you had NFTs like Bolly coin with Salman Khan, and you had Amitabh Bachchan's NFT, and a lot of these celebrities also jumped on that bandwagon. And 99% of those have disappeared, right, today. So what's your view on listing some of these tokens? What value are these tokens adding? And what sort of headwinds do you face when authorities do question you on the validity and the use cases of these tokens?
Right. So one, of course, larger part is that it's of course a commercial call, and there is a large demand for specifically meme coins in India. So if you looked at one of the recent hacks, one of the highest stolen coins was Shiba Inu, right? Because
Shiba Inu.
That's
right?
how many individuals held Shiba Inu, and it was worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Are people here familiar with Shiba Inu and Dogecoin?
Right.
Yeah.
So meme coins, if you look at it at a very coherent, sort of at a very base fundamental first principle level, they are pure speculation. And for a short period of time, people agreeing that this has a certain value, and sort of goes into the argument that does anything have an inherent value, right? If a market where the buyers and sellers agree to a certain price, then that is the true price in a free market philosophy. Now, crypto tries to imitate that, but unfortunately, in reality, what's happening is that most new meme coins, like for example, we've been in the season and when there were 20,000 meme coins being launched on Solana every day, right?
Solana
Solana
the
being
blockchain.
the blockchain, right? And that's primarily the reason that Phantom, the Solana wallet, is like one of the number one apps on the Apple App Store. So this adoption is across the world. It's quick money. In fact, one of my theses for Indian small cap market was that since crypto crashed, people didn't have anything to gamble with, so they went to small caps in India, right? You saw a lot of action that happened because once people get used to that kind of returns, it's just like any addiction, right? And in a country where people bet on cricket, you sure as hell they're going to bet on cryptocurrencies, so to speak.
So one would argue that this whole digital asset space, cryptocurrencies, blockchains, is basically where finance meets technology meets culture, right? So there's clearly a financial use case, which is why we are discussing cryptocurrencies at a finance conference. There's a technology aspect to it with blockchains and emerging tech, and that's just where the internet was maybe 25, 30 years ago, when we all had the 56 KB modem, where it was a little bit clunky. Or phone se connect karo to internet phone nahi chalta hai ya internet nahi chalta hai, right? Back in the days in 1995. So that's kind of like probably where we are with some of the blockchains and culture, because 25 years ago, if someone told us that we'd take a photograph of our food and put it up online, people would have laughed at us, right? Our parents and grandparents are not taking selfies in a bathroom in a nightclub and putting it up on social media. I mean, that whole idea was a little insane, but yet that's popular culture today, right? So one can argue that this whole space is where finance meets technology meets culture, and that's probably where meme coins and Dogecoin and some of these other coins, they have some sort of cultural significance, if not financial significance or that sort of value. But while Dogecoin and these meme coins may not have any value and anything backing it, a lot of people don't even understand what value does Bitcoin or Ethereum have. Bitcoin is known as digital gold and Ethereum is known as digital oil. Can you please explain what's backing these two technologies for a lot of critics who may say, what is backing Bitcoin? Kahan se aaya Bitcoin? Kahan se aaya Ethereum? What's the value of these?
Okay, so I'll take that. I guess the first thing I'll ask is, what do you think in general, the cryptocurrency space, what is the value proposition of the cryptocurrency space? Like, why is it different from UPI or MasterCard or Visa? Does anyone know?
Yeah, let's have some audience participation as well. I have a gentleman there who's raised his hand. Yeah. Can someone give him a mic, please? I hope you guys are understanding the conversation. We're trying to have a 101 level conversation because this topic can get a little, for us it's very interesting, but it can get a little dry. So please, raise your hand in case there's something you haven't understood, and we want to make sure we address that. Go ahead, sir.
Hello. So I think it's because it's decentralized, and UPI is not decentralized. Everyone knows everyone on UPI and on blockchain.
We can't hear you.
He's saying,
Hello?
I'll say what he's saying. He's saying UPI is not decentralized, cryptocurrency is decentralized. So let me extend that a little bit and say, you're right. The primary value proposition of cryptocurrency is trust without a central intermediary. Think about in your life how many entities that you interact with or that you trust that are not centralized, that are not controlled by a few people, right? It's unlikely that you'll find any. Banks are controlled by a few people, governments are controlled by a few people, but cryptocurrency is the only thing on this planet that you can trust. If I send a Bitcoin transaction to Rahul, or if I send a Bitcoin transaction to someone in Peru, I can trust that transaction will get there, and it's not dependent on a small group of centralized people, right? So the number one value proposition of all cryptocurrencies is you can trust without a central intermediary. Bitcoin specifically, now that you can trust without a central intermediary, is the secondary value proposition of Bitcoin is that it is a store of value, right? So it's like gold. There is a limited supply, just like there's a limited supply of gold on this planet. It's actually better than gold, because gold, if you find an asteroid or a meteor, you can bring more gold onto the planet. With Bitcoin, there's 21 million, that's it. It's never going to be more than that, right? So it's a store of value, it's a hedge against inflation. That's why it's compared to gold, even though it's actually better than gold in the function of as a store of value. Ethereum, once again, you can transact anywhere in the world. There's no central intermediary that can censor or prevent your transaction. But you can power these things called smart contracts, which are automated scripts that work and run. Like you can have a will that executes the way it's structured to execute without a lawyer, right? And you can trust that it will execute that way because there's no central intermediary. And Ethereum is like oil in that it powers that transaction. You buy it, you consume it, and then it gets burned to power that transaction.
So anyone else has anything to say? Because
I think he hit the nail on the head.
so just to simplify it, and for the audience, and just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, Bitcoin is digital gold because there's only so much gold that you can mine from the Earth's surface. Bitcoin is a digital version of that. If I have to move to the US, I can't carry a lot of gold with me, but Bitcoin, because I can hold it in a hardware wallet, which is the size of a pen drive. It's digital. And it's backed by a network of computers that's spread across the world, right? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to add is, like, in most cases is instant.
Sorry?
It's instant. The speed is also a major part which brings value to cryptocurrency, specifically in payments. So where if you look at all the international rails across the globe, they still operate on T1, T+1, T+2 days and so on.
Yes.
With stable coins, or for that matter Bitcoin, you almost instantly can transfer that value as well
Yeah.
to another person. Which
And Ethereum, I would like to understand as the world's supercomputer. So think of it as like the Google Play Store or an app store on which, if we did not have the iOS store or the Google Play Store, we would not have apps like Uber, Swiggy, and all of them, right? They exist because we've got an app store. So am I understanding this correctly, that the Ethereum blockchain, the layer, is similar to the app store, and all these decentralized businesses are being built like apps on top of that technology infrastructure layer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a great analogy. You can think of tokens built on Ethereum as an app with a specific function. They use Ethereum smart contract, just like an app on the App Store will use Apple's or Google's tech stack and its coding language. Ethereum tokens will use Ethereum's tech stack and its Solidity, which is the Ethereum coding language.
But see, I would argue that the success of blockchain technology is when you don't even know you're using blockchain technology, right? Today, you don't care what the underlying transaction of UPI is. You care that, I'm on the street, I want to buy butta, or I want to buy, something from a shop, and I'm able to transfer 30 rupees to the shopkeeper. and the money is instant, right? Or if I'm sending a WhatsApp message with a video or a photo to you, I can send it immediately to you. People don't care about the underlying technology. They're not concerned with that. Nobody questions के अरे ये TCP/IP पे है कि कौन से इसके technology क्या है. People care कि मुझे photo भेजना है, मैंने photo भेज दिया, right? People don't care about the tech. So the success of blockchain technology will be when people don't even know they're using blockchain technology. And coming to payments and coming to Bitcoin as an investment, if I'm using Bitcoin as a store of value, which means I think the price is going to go up. People hold gold because it's a hedge against inflation, and people think the value of gold will go up. Similarly, people are holding Bitcoin because they think the value will go up. So why will they then want to buy a cup of coffee or use it as a payment mechanism when they'd rather just hold it? If you think, you know, the value is going to go up, I want to hold it. I don't want to spend it on something, right? Because I think the value is going to be 10 times more tomorrow. So which is why people are now starting to use stable coins, which is a kind of cryptocurrency that's pegged to the US dollar or any of these large currencies like the euro, right? So what exactly are stable coins and what is their use case in payments? And Saurabh, I want to start with you.
Right. So, I mean, if you look at the primary use of stable coins is essentially that giving users a easier UX to identify what value they're buying at. Given US was the natural, US dollar itself was the store of liquidity for most countries and such, US related stable coins became the most famous, and Tether and Circle are two very famous companies that respectively launched USDT and USDC that are used by payments across the globe. Now, if you look at a lot of countries where the currencies are not that stable,
like Argentina, and
Argentina, Turkey
Zimbabwe,
for that matter,
yeah.
Zimbabwe, bunch of other, Nigeria for that matter. A lot of times you will see that people use stable coins as a source of payment because their own currency is not stable. Now what they've done is they against the hedge of inflation against their currency, the stable coin payment became a thing because now you're measuring value in terms of dollars. So that's primarily been one use case. Remitting back home has been a very, very large use case, and a lot of remittance now globally happens using stable coins.
So where it's more expensive, for example, think of an Indian migrant worker in Singapore or the Middle East. They're remitting money back home and they're using some of these, you know, fintech apps.
Western Union.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention them in case those guys are here, but so there's a huge fee that they're paying to remit money back home. There was a statistic that arguably these are the guys who work the hardest and they're paying the equivalent of 1 month's salary just in fees to remit money back home. So stable coins is
Right.
fractions of a penny to send money back home.
It is. So fundamentally, you can almost send it for free. In practical real world, and a lot of people are now doing it, with stable coins, you sort of, especially in cases where your currency is not that stable, you end up getting more of your currency in most cases because there's a liquidity premium. So for example, USDT in India trades at 90, 91 while USD trades at 84. Right, so that's wherever the liquidity premium exists, that helps. Second is sort of, if you look at a lot of people now using, most cases it's about 50 bips. So 0.5 to 1% is for practical payments where somebody would have paid, let's say 8% of their entire remittance from a tradition.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I want to quickly get some closing comments on where do you see the crypto space going, and how should the average investor here look at cryptocurrencies? What should they be studying, and how can they educate themselves better to be, you know, ready to tackle this asset class in the near future?
Sure. I hope the industry moves forward soon with advancement of regulation. When it comes to investing in cryptocurrencies, do it. Be very careful, do your own research, check the platform that you're using, ensure that the platform is compliant with regulations. Even if it is a foreign platform, it needs to comply with Indian regulations.
Which is the Financial Intelligence Unit.
Yes, precisely. Ensure that it's registered. If it's registered, it means that it has to comply with KYC requirements, with money laundering laws. But the base of it is that be very careful and check what you're doing and ensure you're being thorough about it.
Prashant, quickly, top 3 currencies you would look at? Not
Obviously-
investment advice.
Yeah, not investment advice. I would say Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Solana, but Ethereum for sure. BlackRock is building on Ethereum. Most real world tokenization efforts are happening on Ethereum. So I'd say look at it as a builder, not investor. I would say if you want to build, if you want to innovate, look at Ethereum.
You would have 20,000 currencies to sort of chill.
No, I think I primarily will stick with Bitcoin and Ethereum. In fact, like from an average investor perspective, I would say that you start slow and you sort of have like an SIP methodology to it, that you put little money every month without risking too much just for greed, right? So a lot of times you'll find yourself in a situation where a friend will tell you how they made 50% yesterday. I would recommend you ignore that friend and continue to evaluate that investment on your own and have realistic expectations. So if rest of your portfolio generates like 15%, you're taking more risk, you're trying to generate maybe 20% in a year. More risk doesn't mean that you go for 200. That's where gambling comes in the picture. So you may want to look at it like how your portfolio is structured. If you have low risk and you're generating 10% and you want to increase some returns, then you add crypto to your portfolio, which is usually for most people that'll be somewhere between 5 to 10% and not more.
So my closing thoughts are: ignore the noise, have a long-term horizon. Think about it like holding the Amazon stock or one of these tech stocks back in the 90s. When it's a small cap, there's more fluctuation, there's more volatility. But as that small cap becomes a large cap, there's less volatility. So think about it like that. It's a new emerging asset class that has more volatility. But over, let's say, another 10-year period, the volatility will be less and it'll probably give you a better return. And it definitely has a space in your portfolio. Thank you. We have one question that we can probably take.
So we are absolutely out of time.
We are out of time.
So
Sorry about that. We can take any questions offline, perhaps. Yeah. Thank you
can
so
we
much.
give a big round of applause for that fantastic conversation? Well, I'm sure that many of you all have questions, and I see so many hands go up in the air. But I would urge you all to please connect with our speakers offline. They would be more than happy to take your questions. Again, a big round of applause for all our speakers one more time. Thank you. Thank you so very much.